Hello, everyone. It's getting to that time where the fort will open again for the year. So I wanted to talk today about presets. I shoot everything in RAW, which means that the camera has a lot more detail in the image, and it doesn't quite look like what I see when I'm there. And the purpose of presets is to lay down a foundation of what you want the image to look like. Now, there's two ways you can do this. You can create a preset and then just apply it to all the images. So if I go to develop, what I did was when I loaded the images in, I had it apply the preset. Now, there's a problem with that. And that problem is when you apply the preset on the way in, it slows down the ability of the application to load up your images, right? They take a little bit longer to process through off of your CF Express or SD card. And you can see the difference that this made to the image just applying that preset. Now, one thing I like to do is I will take a image, right? You see it's now finished up, and I will apply what I want to that image to it till it looks like what I expect it to look like, what I saw. And I like to do a little color grading, and that's down here in the menu. And if we turn it off, it'll take a minute, but you can see the difference between the photos with color grading on and color grading off. So this is what I like with the image. Now what you can do, let's go back to library here. And now we look at all the images. Now I shoot a lot of images because I let the shutter run a little bit. And you can see that this other one that I processed does not look the same as the one that just got processed. And that's because while I use my presets as a starting point, I may not like the image that finally comes out. In this case, it looks a little too yellow to me. So what you can do is once you've got an image looking the way you want, take that image, take all the other images that you want to use with that same lighting. Now, I've got another set that are out in a field, so I may not want to use the same lighting for that one. So I'll apply it to the images that I choose, which is a much quicker way to do it. Just load them all in, apply it to the images that you want, and then as my kitty decides to play with the keyboard and zoom in on that picture, there's a thing down here that says sync and sync settings. When you choose that, what it allows you to do is to look at what it is that you want to sync across. So I can sync the color grading, I can change the vibrance, for example. So I will make a change to an image after I've applied a preset to it, and then I will make tweaks to it. Whatever I tweak will be what I change, and then I copy across. And when you hit synchronize, what that's going to do is apply the exact same settings to the other image, and you'll see that the image is now changed and it matches the first one. This allows you to have the same look and feel to your image. And that's the advantage that you get with presets as well. So if we take another image here, I just like this one dark, which is why it doesn't quite match the other ones. Let's take these guys here. We're going to develop. It's immediately going to change because I applied a preset. It's going to put the color grading on it, everything that I would normally do with a photograph. Now, if you guys have seen my other videos, there's also an AI process that will allow you to take, once you've chosen your images, feed it to this process, and it will try to match your style. The way it does that is you have to load 3,000 images into the system that you've already edited. Looking at those different images, it figures out what your style is, and then it will go back and apply that style to other images when they come through. Then as you get them back, and it all works with the Lightroom catalogs, so when you get them back, you can make modifications to it and then go through and send it back to the AI. So the AI can say, here's the changes that I made. Here are the new changes that came in. What are the differences between it? So it can learn what you liked and what you didn't like and adapt it to your style more. Now, as you can see, I've got some user presets over here. And what I'll do is I'll take a preset, and it may be an existing preset that I purchased, and make modifications to that preset. And then I'll save it as a user preset. Now, this is one that I use when I was doing my drone stuff and I was doing a land survey, taking it for that particular camera and the settings that it was giving me for those raw photographs. And it's a Sony camera that's on my Autel. This is what I would get. And you'll notice how blue the sky looks here. It's changes that were correct for using that drone camera. Then I've got another set of changes here that I used when I was taking some indoor modeling shots. And those can get applied. And you can see the difference here because those indoor shots needed to have a little bit more exposure, and I didn't do color grading on them, so that's why they look like this. So by going through and making your own presets, you can then quickly and easily take all of your images and apply those presets to the image. Now you've got your starting point. Now that you've got a place to begin, what are you going to do next? What is the change you're going to make to tweak the image? Make that. And then if you've got a series of images, like these are all pretty much the same area, I would use the same focus for those, the same color changes and things. As we move down here to where we're out in a field, now we're at a bit of a different time of the day. Things are a little different here. I'm more of a wide angle. I may want it to look a little colder than it is by color grading it a little more on the blue side. But there's a lot of things I could do with the image. And then these images would be together as a group, and I would sync those images together so that they have that same look and feel to them for those images. So presets can get you a lot of the way there as to what you want. Same with like image and AI. It'll get you most of the way there. And that's the goal, is how can you cut down your editing time? For me, because I do the dodge and burns and things, nothing has quite caught up with that part. It's doing the color grading and the contrasting and things. Those are coming through pretty good. But when I have to go back through and do the dodge and burn, it's still taking me some time to do those images and to get the images looking the way I want them to. You can see down here the difference between the processed image and the other image. So it made a lot of changes. So it's got me most of the way there. And now I can just go in and tweak that image, the color grading and things. And once I've got this one looking good, then I will probably take the rest of them and sync them so that they're all done the same way. That also saves time. But again, when we looked at the sync settings, we never saw in there things that were really going to help with the dodge and burn. I usually pull that out and do that in Photoshop anyway, which is another step in the process. But if it takes me 20 minutes to do a dodge and burn, anywhere from 5 minutes to 20 minutes, and this can save me a part of that time, well, that's great, especially if the dodge and burn is one of the longer ones, like 20 minutes. I might have already had to do another 5 minutes of touch up on the photograph. Now I'm down to just 20 minutes for the dodge and burn, maybe down to 15 or 10 minutes to do the dodge and burn, to pull out. For example, if I'm doing a portrait, I will do processing on it using dodge and burn for the most part to make the face look three-dimensional. Because as we know, when we do these photographs, they're a two-dimensional image. And the lens takes in a lot of information, and we kind of lose a little bit of that dimensionality. We get it back with bokeh. So if I'm using my 2.8 like I am here, but I have it set, in this case it was at 4.5 and 2,000th of a second. But if I have it at the 2.8 and I focus in on one person, most of that line will be a little bit out of focus and the background will be out of focus. The foreground will be out of focus. It adds that dimensionality to the photograph. But when you're doing a portrait and you've just got the person's face, by shading around their face, it helps pull their face out of the image and making it look three-dimensional. Now, I've got some videos on how I do the dodge and burn. Basically, what I'm doing is things that are brighter look closer to you and things that are darker look farther away when you're looking at an image. So what that allows you to do is to like shadow around the eyes, shadow around the nose, so that the nose doesn't look flat. It pulls the nose out by putting a little bit of lighting on it and shadowing around the edges of it. Same with the eyes. You get rid of your dark eyes, your dark circles around the eyes, but by just giving just a bit of burn, so a little bit darkness around like the eyeball, for example, you can make that eyeball look a little bit more round by giving a little bit more of a lightening on the top part of the eye, on the part that would be closest to you. You can make that appear three-dimensional even though it's in a two-dimensional medium. So that's what you can get out of these presets, is a way of cutting down your time, whether you're creating a preset or if you're going out and using something like Imagen AI because you have so many photographs that you can use. Now, when I take photographs at the fort, I'm typically at 1,000 or so. As you can see so far this year, I've taken 3,087 photographs. I'm not going to process all of those. I will have a subset of those because I let the shutter run a little bit. So I end up getting a collection of photographs. And if I've got 5 photographs, I want one of them. So if I've got 1,000 photographs or I've got 100 photographs, maybe I'll take 20 out of it, maybe less, depending on if they're too derivative. But the photographs are there and I can always go back and pull a different one if I want to later on. The point being there is you just want to get a lot of photographs, cull them down. Once you've got them culled, do a quick editing to those photographs. If you're using something like Imagen AI, when you get them back, the stuff is applied. You can tweak them, obviously. And if you tweak it and you like what you get, then go ahead and make another preset up. There's no reason you can't have a bunch of different presets with different changes, just make sure you label them correctly so it's easy for you to figure out which preset that you want to use. But cut down on your time. When you're doing an event, which is different than when you do wedding photography and things like that, and I know things like Imagen AI are built more for wedding photographers. The goal is a quick turnaround time. So something like that where it can take a whole bunch of photographs and process them and give you back an almost finished product cuts down on the amount of time that you have to edit, which means you can turn around and give it back to your client more quickly. With a wedding photographer, you've got a little bit of a um, window there because they're going on honeymoon. So you're not necessarily going to have to give them the photographs for a little while. You've got a couple of weeks to work on those photographs before you have to worry about turning them around, showing them what they've got. And then, of course, they got to wait for the album anyway. So you're looking at some time into the future. Here, where I'm taking photographs of an event, my turnaround time is shorter because if Fort wants to use the photograph to promote the event or to show what the event was like and post it to their social media or whatever, I need to get these turned around in a relatively short time so that they can use them quickly after the event. Probably they're not going to want to use these things 2 weeks after the event to show the event that just happened. They might use them for the uh, advertising for a similar event later on, but it gives a different urgency to what's being done. Same thing if you're shooting a football game or a baseball game. You're probably going to want to turn those images around very quickly. So having a good preset at the bare minimum to apply to your image is what you're going to need to have. Now, if you're doing portraits and things like that, where there's more editing that has to happen, like if I'm doing a bodybuilder, you want those muscles to pop. That takes a little bit more editing, and that's the higher end, the longer of my editing processes. But you need to take the time for the detail, so they're not going to turn around that quickly. No preset is going to get you there, but it could get you part of the way there. So look at presets, figure out which ones that you find. Maybe you find some that you buy and you don't quite like them. That's fine. Use them as a base, make some modifications to your presets, and then save them as your own. And then that gives you a leg up and a little bit of faster processing when you're going forward.